Hello and welcome to another fun-filled edition of Adam's Music Box, where today it was announced that the Record Plant Studios on Sycamore Avenue in Hollywood, California, will close their doors permanently. Now, they've been in that particular location since 1985, but have had a presence in the LA area since long before that, originally being on 3rd Street, kind of near where the Beverly Center is now, for those who know the area, before a fire claimed that location, but the one in Hollywood on Sycamore has been going strong ever since. But it's closing its doors now, and this is by no means an anomaly. Recording studios, legendary recording studios, have been closing left and right, and there are several reasons for it. There's sort of the local issues that are going on in LA, and frankly in much of the world, but LA is a particular hotspot for a kind of economic decline. There's a lot of crime compared to what there was in recent years, a lot of economic destitution, and the industry, the entertainment industry as a whole, is shrinking if you measure it in terms of the metrics that we would have done in the pre-internet age. Even though in many ways creativity is still going strong, but without the big profit margins and without the big costs that went into creating art, whether music, film, television style programming, and the list goes on. Now, there was a really interesting quote I came across that I want to read to you from a guitar tech called Jesse McInturf, who said the following: "The need for a big room, meaning a big room in a recording studio, is pretty minor at this point. There are less and less rock bands, and you could record Taylor Swift in a vocal booth the size of a closet." Now, there are a lot of interesting truths that are packed into that statement. And the first is that, putting the economic issues aside, the music industry has changed because the kinds of music that are popular have changed. Rock music, which was the dominant form of pop music from the 60s up into the very early 21st century, it generally, in order to sound good, it required a large traditional studio with various kinds of acoustical environments, with a large array of microphones, including some vintage ones that are out of production, but that these legacy studios had in abundance, a monitoring system or systems, because there were always more than one, that really allowed the musicians and the engineers to get the sound they want, a sophisticated console, advanced multi-track tape recording systems that really allowed for the overdubs that became a central part of rock, particularly after the 70s, to really sound good, whether on a hi-fi system, on the radio, etc. Rock music is really no longer very popular. It's still a very dominant music, but it doesn't have the central place in pop music that it did in the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and a bit into the 21st century. So, what is the kind of music that is dominating the pop charts? Well, it's generally vocal driven music with very few live musicians providing the underscore. Much of it is done with samplers and sequencers, and much of that can be created and performed and recorded in any type of environment by a man or woman wearing headphones at a desk with a trusty laptop in the corner. Doesn't require any kind of sophisticated space. There's no need to be in a city like LA where they have people working 24/7 who know how to repair vintage tape machines or consoles, because a laptop repairman, should anything go wrong, and fewer things do go wrong with modern laptops, is available in almost any city in the world. So there's no need to be in these expensive, formerly glamorous big cities, no need for a big room. And as Jesse said in this quote, a vocalist without much, if any, human instrumental backing, all you need, again, a decent microphone. And you can now get a pretty decent microphone for not much money, comparatively, of course, a laptop, and the size of a closet. So a trip to the Home Depot and you can make a spare closet, a spare bedroom in your home into a vocal booth, and that's compared to over $2,000 a day minimum to hire out a major studio. So yeah, the style of music has changed. Computers have even made recording live instruments like a real guitar, a real piano, a real Hammond organ, a real drum set. They made it much easier. So before in a garage band where maybe you could record a demo style recording with a TIAC or Revox tape machine and a few microphones, that would sound decent for a demo, but not like what you could get at a place like the Record Plant. That you can do in a way that's decent enough in your home. And of course, it won't sound as good as something recorded in a professional studio, but it's close enough for rock and roll, if you will, close enough for hip hop, close enough for singer-songwriter music, etc. So it's really a perfect storm of a dwindling economy in cities like LA, styles of music that don't need the space and the microphones and the complex overdubbing. Because it's easy to just drag and drop things done on a synthesized environment in Pro Tools, and obviously, a lot of that has been driven by the changing tastes in music. And then, of course, there's the long running decline in the economic fortunes of the music industry. And that was really something that began when Napster challenged traditional record labels for distribution. And rather than buy out Napster or strike a partnership with them and do something that would have turned Napster in to a proto Spotify, a perfectly legal way, maybe unethical, but legal way to do this. And then the ethics hopefully could have been a debate happening soon thereafter. Instead, the record labels who had been frankly screwing musicians in a different way at that point, they decided to sue Napster out of existence, sealing their fate because the cat was out of the bag. Steve Jobs then came around and said, look, we've got LimeWire, we've got Kazaa, we've got torrents left and right. Let's create something where people can download music legally that's so convenient they'll be willing to pay for a service that is guaranteed not to have viruses or terribly illicit and illegal material floating around, in addition to obviously the musical tracks. Just keep it simple, keep it legal. And to do that, to encourage that, we're only going to charge $1 per song download, and we're going to allow people to download individual tracks on an album, even if they're not packaged per se as a single. And the music industry executives at that time were incandescent, but they had to relent because it was Steve Jobs' offer to transfer the financial might of record distribution from the labels to a big tech company. It was that, or it was just all of these post-Napster clones. So all of that really represents a perfect storm, but it's still in many ways sad to see these great facilities closing down. They have subsidy packages for other industries, industries, frankly, where there is still a lot of demand. And I'm not saying that subsidies are a good idea for the music industry. That would not only probably not be financially prudent, but we'd get government approved music, which is something Frank Zappa warned about in the 80s. So ultimately, I don't think that's an attractive solution either. And I don't think it's a particularly financially viable one. So it is sad that it's happening. It's the end of an era, and it's the perfect example of quality giving way to quantity. Because when you're not having to pay for a large facility and all of the staff working at that facility, then you are able to churn things out much more easily. And again, there are benefits to that. It's democratizing, first of all, and that's what's great about podcasts, about video streaming platforms like the one I'm on right now, and other things. So there are definitely some benefits, but in the best of all worlds, we would have a bit of both. And we had for a bit, but the old world is clearly giving way to the new. And so those great wood paneled rooms where the cocaine was cheap and the girls were free and all of that. It represented a certain era that's over. No one really likes girls anymore. No one likes cocaine anymore. The drugs are different. The sex is different. The rock and roll is gone. But music will always live on. And the next great innovation is right around the corner if you want it to be. So let's look at the positives along with the negatives, but nevertheless, it's the end of an era, and we're going to see a lot more of this. It's not the first major studio to close. Many are in limbo, not just in LA, but in big cities across the world, in New York, in London, in Chicago, in Nashville, big music centers, at least in the sort of English-speaking world. And that's what's happening. We're going to see more of this. So if you're sentimental about such things, be prepared. Like, subscribe, and we will see you next time. Take care.